They try to teach them coping skills by physical therapy, occupational therapy, and speech therapy. They teach them how to cope and adjust. Certain things they won't grow out, like stemming, clapping, rap. When kids stem and you see them picking and biting, that's their way of regulating things. It may be too much going on. It may be a lot of noise. It may be a lot of topics. So they're kind of stemming. So whatever you do, don't stop your child from stemming. If you do, it's like an itch that you got to scratch really bad and you can't. So don't say, hey, stop it. Don't let them stem because they need to regulate the world around them. So no, they can't grow out. They may learn coping skills. And the second part of the question,
are they geniuses?
Are they geniuses? Well, autism spectrum disorder varies from kid to kid in its different forms. So one kid can read, another one may not. My son can't read. He's just learning how to read and he's 13. My son isn't really that savvy in math. He's learning how to count coins. He just learned his fine motor skills, how to tie a shoelace. However, my son also set up his YouTube channel. He also set up the channels for his brothers who are older than him. My son also asked for a beat maker so he can start making beats. So they're not geniuses, but their strengths are in music, art, and memory. They have huge strengths in those areas. So they can accelerate in a lot of areas, but not all around. Because I know, everybody just like, oh, okay, y'all know Einstein had autism. Thomas Edison had autism. There's a lot of greats out there that were autistic. So they do have these strengths in the art. So all around, they may have some things where they elevate in and some things where they just can't seem to grasp.
So being that you have a kid that's autistic, so is it a discipline problem?
Well, this is another thing that I'm really big on. It's not a disciplinary problem. People see my son outside and he uses profanity. He uses profanity because a lot of kids with autism mimic behaviors. I use profanity. I'll see people outside, hey, that little boy need a beating. Not understanding a meltdown is totally different from a tantrum. A kid can have a meltdown because they're in a crowded place. Your kid with autism really may not do crowds that well because they want to be to themselves. So few people think they could beat it out of them, stop biting, stop doing this. And you actually hurting your child. You cannot beat autism out of them. Don't let people think, oh, he just needs to listen. This is how we cured things, with the belt back in my day. The belt is the problem solver. It also increased people going to jail. But anyway, so you can't beat autism out of your kid. It's not a discipline problem. So people will say, hey, that boy need a beating. So do you. You have 50,000 boyfriends, but nobody beat your ass. Excuse me. So, people have discipline problems that need discipline, but autism isn't one of them. So don't try to beat it out of your child. Don't try to sit him down. Don't try to make him sit still. He has ADHD. You're torturing him. And it's going to lead into aggressive behavior. He's going to become destructive. He's going to become defiant. You're going to have him labeled. You don't want another diagnosis on top of something else. So don't try to discipline it out of him. Teach him coping skills. It works way better. Teaching your child how to cope instead of teaching them how to fear.
So how is it diagnosed? How is autism diagnosed?
Autism is diagnosed. This is what they do. It's a number of ways they diagnose autism. They, of course, sensory processing, how you interact socially, how you communicate, verbal or nonverbal. And it actually starts during your prenatal, how you're taking care of yourself and your baby. So your care that you provide too during pregnancy is very crucial. And autism can be diagnosed between 18 months. I believe they can start diagnosing up to 2.5 years. So early intervention is really important. So when you take your doctor, your child to the doctor, let them know your concerns. Let them know if you see your child stemming, if they're crying excessively, if they're around loud noises, if you see certain things are starting to irritate them, if you see that certain tags and friction on their skin, if you see they can't stand certain smells, or if you see they're really sensitive to sound. So you really have to pay attention to your child, and don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. You could get 2, 3, 4, 10 opinions. It's your child. Don't be afraid. The only fear you should have is letting your child suffer and going undiagnosed and when he turns into a teenager, the world isn't going to have pity on him. They're not going to have mercy on him. They're going to say, oh, he should have been diagnosed. He should have had this done. When you try to defend him in school and in high school and in the prison systems and the jail systems, you can't, because you never had anything documented. You had your feelings, but you didn't act on it. You was afraid of what your friends would say, what your job would say, what you would feel outside. It has nothing to do with that. It has nothing to do with your feelings. It has everything as your responsibility as a parent to get your kid diagnosed, to go and get it. We as black people don't like that. What stays in the house will go, whatever goes on in the house stays in the house. We have to outgrow that. We hurting ourselves in so many areas. Go get the help. Get your child evaluated. Don't worry about your friend. Don't worry about the father or the mother. Whatever you feel you need to do for your child, you go do it. Don't worry about nobody else. Don't worry about the grandmothers, the new generation, or the old generation. Worry about your child getting the proper services that he needs.
So is all autism the same?
Autism is not the same. Everyone, people's like, oh, I know somebody with autism and he could read. I know somebody with autism and she got straight A's. Well, I know somebody with autism who can't speak. I know somebody with autism who can't sit still. I know somebody with autism who stems all day. I know somebody with autism who can't read. So every person with autism is different. So don't take the advice of your cousin's friend's uncle who have a child with autism. His kid with autism may have it differently because it's a spectrum disorder. That means it's broad. It's not one thing. It's very broad. So the diagnoses are very broad too. So again, you can have autism and depression follow, anxiety follow, introvert. And I'm basing this off of my son. I'm basing this off the kids I work with. I also develop a program for autism where I worked at as well. So, and it's called I developed Sensory Hour, where you give your kid that quiet time, cut off the light, give them Play-Doh, give them bubbles, give them music, do aromatherapy, do things that's going to help, release some of that stress, because anxiety go hand in hand with autism. And another thing my son developed fibromyalgia, which increases with anxiety. So my son has anxiety. My son has autism, spectrum disorder. My son also has Tourette's. My son also is dyslexia. So when it comes to this, don't take it lightly. Don't trend lightly, because you need to understand what's going on with your child. The quicker you understand with your child, the better way you could teach him. If I didn't know my son was dyslexic, I would be teaching him the regular way. If I didn't know my son was sensitive to sound, I would probably be shouting. So my son disciplined me. Your child with autism will discipline you in ways you never knew. You will learn compassion. You will learn how to communicate. You will learn how to talk to people. You will learn how to be non-judgmental. You will learn the best lesson life can teach you. And I'm more than grateful that God gave me him, because I would hate for him to have went to a parent who didn't have the time to learn, who didn't take the time to know their child, who didn't have compassion, who was just beating and yelling and thinking it's a discipline problem and listening to their friends. So I'm very grateful for the person that I gave birth to, because it taught me a lot, and I'm very blessed. So I know my wig is out of tech, guys, so I want to make sure y'all focusing on the message and not the hair. So I don't so focus on the message, okay? Go get your child diagnosed, please. Do me a favor. Do the world a favor, because this is a cruel world. Police brutality, they don't care if your kid got autism or not. The doctors may not care. The teachers. And another thing, in these schools, they're not really diagnosing your kids. They're holding them over, and they may, based off of their personality. If they don't like your kid, or they feel like your kid is acting up, he needs to be evaluated. So a lot of times people may confuse autism with a behavior problem. Make sure that's not what's going on in school. So go to the school, speak to the teachers, inform them. And if your child have an IEP like my child does.
As a what?
IEP, an individual education plan. Mm-hmm. And that's kids with special needs. Learn all about IEPs and learn how to write them. I've rewritten my son's IEP to my liking. You can include anything in it, whatever you think is a trigger to your son. I included body language. I need you to watch your body language around my son. I include the fire drills. So learn the IEP and learn if you have a big concern. Don't put it under parent concerns. This is for the people who's aware of IEPs. Put it under medical, because this way they could take it serious. They may not take your parent concern serious. So make sure if you have an IEP and you have any major concerns, put it under the medical column.
Okay. So hold on. Does diet have to do anything with autism?
Okay, so you know what? You have a second brain in your stomach. Second brain, I forgot the name of it. You have a second brain. So diet can play a role. It will not cure it. However, it may reduce anxiety. My son, I give him omega-3. I don't give him melatonin personally for me because it kind of increases his anxiety. I also give my son sleepy time, but valerian tea, and it's good because it reduces anxiety. I also give him magnesium. So you could go to the health food store and get all these things that help to calm your child, calm music, and definitely omega-3 fish oil. That's really good. And you kind of want to stay away from you want to reduce some of that gluten. You might want to reduce some of that gluten, cut back on some of the dairy. Again, it's not going to cure autism. You want to reduce some of the anxiety. You really want to get them healthy. You really want to fix that system up so they won't be so antsy. They could calm down a little bit, because it has to be stressful if their body is tight all day. So you want to get them at a space where they could cope and they could receive information. So diet is definitely important. Definitely important. Again, I'm not a dietitian. I'm not a doctor. This is my opinion. The opinion is not fact. You can research it. As far as vaccines, that's your choice. We are not telling you to vaccinate or not. Again, this is our opinion. This is a topic, and it's an important one that especially women of color, men of color, don't look into. We want to overlook it. Most likely you're going to overlook this because you feel like it don't apply to you. You know, we always want to hear stuff that boosts our ego, that make us feel good, things that's on our side. Everything ain't always going to be on your side, but it will be informative. So I'm hoping you take your time and go over some of these things.
Okay. Well said. Very well said. And you want to leave some information?
I want to leave some information in case you guys want to reach out to me. It's Psych PHDP on Instagram. PSYCHP. No, PSYCHPHDP. Psych PHDP on Instagram, and you could DM me. I will give you referrals to autism community, to places where you could go for additional information, for help, for assistance, and even confidence. I'm not going to screenshot it, because you may be afraid. You may be afraid that your kid is on the spectrum, of how you're going to be viewed if he's clapping outside in the middle of the train. My son was like this on the train, rocking. Everybody's looking like they want me to do something. I did. I said April is Autism Awareness Month. Just like that. You don't have to argue with nobody. And another thing, if your kid have autism, you don't tell the world in front of your kid if he does something like, oh, he has autism. Don't label your child in front of nobody. Don't do that. Make your kid feel good. You don't need to make people understand what's going on, but you do need to understand how you're making your child feel whenever he does something. And you say, oh, it's because he has autism. Oh, it's because you're telling your son that he's just known for his autism, or your daughter. And one more thing, girls have autism too. They may go undiagnosed because girls know how to mask things much better than men. So make sure you pay attention to your daughters too. Again, Psych PHDP on Instagram. DM me and I can give you some information.